Flagship of her fleet, the minelayer headed for her next mission. On the way, she was met by an enemy submarine and battle ensued. Her crew worked hard to protect their ship, and the escort ships around her battled for their lives. 6 long hours would ensue, and in the midst of the chaos, the minelayer would meet a horrific end. Welcome to Shipwreck Sunday. My name is Eleanor. Just a quick disclaimer for a younger audience before we dive in. This story may be disturbing to some, so viewer discretion is advised. Okay everyone, let's get into it. Okinoshima, which translates to Sacred Island and is the name of an island off the coast of Munakata, was the largest purpose-built minelayer in the Imperial Japanese Navy, and the first built with a reconnaissance airplane. After the ratification of the London Naval Treaty, officially known as the Treaty for the Limitation and Reduction of Naval Armament, the Imperial Japanese Navy decided to retire its existing obsolete minelayers, the former cruiser Aso and Tokiwa. A replacement was budgeted under the Maru 1 Supplementary Naval Expansion budget of 1931. The new vessel was to be of unprecedented size, thus overcoming the shortcomings of previous minelayers in the Japanese inventory in terms of range and capacity. She was ordered in the fiscal year of 1931, which ran from July 1st, 1930 to June 30th, 1931, and laid down on September 27th, 1934 at the Harima shipyards in the Hyogo Prefecture. She was launched on November 24, 1935, and commissioned a year later on September 30, 1936. Before we get any further into her story, let's look at her specs. Okinoshima was a minelayer that displaced 4,290 long tons standard. She was 370 feet 9 inches long in between her perpendiculars, 391 feet 4 inches long at the waterline, had a beam of 51 feet 8 inches wide, and a draft of 18 feet deep. Her complement averaged 445 officers and ratings. As for propulsion, she was equipped with 4 boilers that fed 2 geared steam turbines and turned 2 propeller shafts. This system produced 9,000 horsepower, giving her an average speed of 20 knots and a range of 9,000 nautical miles at 10 knots. Now let's look at armament and aircraft. As for armament, she had the same guns as the Japanese cruiser Yubari, as well as 600 Type 6 naval mines. Her guns were 4 14cm 50 third-year type naval guns, 2 Type 3 80mm AA guns, 2 Type 93 13mm AA guns, and 22 depth charges. She was unique in that she was the first minelayer to have reconnaissance aircraft, and she had 1 aircraft catapult plus 1 Kawanishi E-7K seaplane. She was a unique minelayer. And you guys are unique viewers. If you're enjoying this video, leave me a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know down in the comment section below. Alright, let's get into her operational history. During the late 1930s after commissioning, Okinoshima was assigned as the flagship of a destroyer squadron and made numerous survey missions to the Marshall Islands, Caroline Islands, and Marianas in the Japanese South Seas Mandate, seeking potential sites for seaplane bases and transporting naval mines for future use. The Second World War has a couple of start dates, depending upon which historians you ask. In Europe, the start date is considered September 1st, 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. However, the war can be considered to have started 2 years earlier on July 7, 1937, when Japan invaded China, beginning the Second Sino-Japanese War, which would directly tie into World War II. China often doesn't get as big of a spotlight as the Holocaust and the European theater, or even the Pacific theater, but it is still a vital part of the war to remember. 4 years after invading China, Japan turned their eyes to Hawaii. The Americans already had a formidable navy, especially given their massive aircraft carriers. Imperial Japan looked to knock them out of the war before they could even get started, and launched the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. While this was happening, Okinoshima was serving as flagship for Admiral Kiyohide Shima in Operation Gi, which was the invasion of the Gilbert Islands, and had deployed from the Jaluit Atoll with a Special Naval Landing Force, or SNLF. From December 9th to the 10th, Okinoshima supported the Japanese landings on Macon and Tarawa, and on Christmas Eve, December 24th, the seizure of Abayang. On New Year's Day, January 1st, 1942, Okinoshima was at Truk, now called Chuck. In January of 1942, Okinoshima, under the overall command of Admiral Sadamichi Kajioka, operated in Operation R, the invasion of Rabaul. She assisted in the landing of Japanese troops at Blanche Bay, Rabaul on the night between January 22nd and 23rd of 1942. On February 1st of that year, she was officially reassigned to the South Seas Force. The South Seas Force, or 4th Fleet of the Imperial Japanese Navy, was based out of Truk with a secondary base at Kwajalein. After initial successes, additional bases were established in the southern Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, Gilbert Islands, eastern New Guinea, Bismarck Archipelago, and the Solomon Islands. This was the time that Okinoshima was operated during this thriving period for the South Seas Force. It wouldn't last forever, as after the Battle of the Coral Sea from May 4th to the 8th of 1942, the area covered by the fleet was reduced to an inner core of Japanese possessions, while the new 8th Fleet was assigned to confront the advancing American forces in the Solomon Islands and New Guinea. The South Seas Force would see the front lines once more in November of 1943 when the Americans attacked the Gilbert Islands and captured the major naval base at Tarawa. In March of 1944, the IJN 4th Fleet came under operational control of the Central Pacific Area Fleet based in Saipan, and it effectively ceased to exist with the fall of Saipan to the American forces. This is just for some background information. Long before the fall of her entire fleet, on March 5, 1942, Okinoshima, now under the overall command of Admiral Kuninori Marumo, was assigned to Operation SR, which was the invasion of Lae and Salamaua in New Guinea. On March 10th, the invasion force was attacked by United States Navy aircraft from USS Yorktown and USS Lexington, with Okinoshima suffering light damage, but she was able to be repaired at Truk. After these repairs, on April 28th, she was appointed flagship for Admiral Shima's Tulagi invasion force, which was part of Operation Mo, or the invasion of Tulagi and Port Moresby in New Guinea. The Tulagi Assault Force started their landings on Tulagi on May 3rd, with Okinoshima successfully landing troops of the Kure 3rd Special Naval Landing Force. However, the Battle of the Coral Sea would commence as they were attacked on May 4th by aircraft from USS Yorktown. Several transports and the destroyer Kikuzuki were sunk, and Okinoshima suffered from a near miss, the blast from which left her damaged and she was towed to Rabaul for repairs. This was the beginning of the end for Okinoshima. But we are endlessly grateful for our members. Thank you so much to our amazing YouTube members and patrons. If you'd like to have some awesome perks like episodes a full day in advance, join our YouTube memberships today. Okay, my friends, you know what time it is. It's time for her sinking. On May 10, 1942, Okinoshima left Rabaul for Operation RY, the invasion of Nauru and Ocean Island. This operation was originally set to be executed following Operation MO and prior to Operation MI, which resulted in the Battle of Midway. On May 11th or the 12th, 1942, sources differ, the ship was off the coast of New Ireland. At 4:52 a.m., the U.S. submarine USS S-42 attacked the convoy, damaging Okinoshima with 2 or 3 torpedoes roughly 125 miles east of Rabaul. The destroyer Mochizuki took her under tow, while the other escorting destroyers counterattacked S-42 for 6 hours, causing severe damage and forcing S-42 to end her war patrol early. While under tow in St. George's Channel at 6:40 a.m., Okinoshima started to list. The crews of Mochizuki and Okinoshima tried their best to right the ship, but she continued to list, suddenly capsizing. She sank at 5 degrees 6 minutes south, 153 degrees 48 minutes east, and her captain and most of her crew survived, though the exact number is unknown. With her loss, the destroyer Yusuki temporarily assumed the role of Rear Admiral Kiyohide Shimasui's flagship. Okinoshima was struck from the Naval Registry on May 25, 1942, and that was the end of her. A Great Lakes freighter left Port Arthur, Ontario with thousands of tons of iron ore. She was destined for Ashtabula, Ohio, and the weather on the lakes was clear and warm that summer's evening. As the night creeped in, her captain retired to bed, leaving her under the watchful eye of the first mate. Little did the captain know, but this was the last time he'd see his ship in one piece. On next week's episode of Shipwreck Sunday, we get into the story of SS Emperor.